Staying in the know shouldn't feel like a chore,
Hmm.
right? You want the important stuff, the fascinating bits, without having to spend hours scrolling. Well, you've come to the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're zeroing in on the just-announced details of the Nintendo Switch 2. We're using The Verge's article. The Nintendo Switch 2 arrives on June 5th for $449.99 as our guide.
Yep, a pretty big announcement.
Definitely. Our mission, to cut through the noise, bring you the key insights, the stuff that really matters so you can get up to speed quickly, maybe even have a few aha moments.
Yeah,
Okay, let's unpack what this really means.
absolutely. This is a console many have been, really anticipating. It's interesting to see how Nintendo is trying to build on the massive appeal of the original Switch.
Yeah, it raises some intriguing questions about their strategy, doesn't it?
It really does.
Definitely. So let's dive straight into the big questions.
Yeah.
When can you actually get one? And what's the damage to the wallet going to be?
Right. So the official word from Nintendo landed on April 2nd, 2025, according to the article. And the launch date itself is slated for June 5th.
June 5th, okay.
So it's actually a pretty quick turnaround from announcement to release.
That is quick. Good news for anyone who's been eagerly waiting. And the price. That's always a major point of discussion.
Always. The base model of the Nintendo Switch 2 will retail for $449.99.
$450, okay.
Now, for those already picturing themselves, on the starting line, there will also be a bundle. It includes the new Mario Kart World for $499.99.
Right, $50 more for Mario Kart. That makes sense. Bundling a mid-year launch title like that is certainly going to tempt a lot of people.
Oh, for sure.
What about getting your order in early? When do pre-orders go live?
Okay, so if you're in North America, you can pre-order starting April 9th. That's through participating retailers.
April 9th, North America. Got it.
And our friends in Europe actually get a slight head start. Pre-orders open there on April 8th.
Okay.
The article also gives us a glimpse at some regional pricing. Looks like £395.99 in the UK and £469.99 in Germany. So, a helpful benchmark for listeners overseas.
Yeah, important info for our international listeners. All right, beyond the when and the how much, let's talk about what's actually inside this new piece of tech. Hardware improvements. This is where things get really interesting, isn't it?
It is, and what's quite notable, I think, is the attention Nintendo paid to the visual experience. The screen on the Switch 2 is getting a significant upgrade. We're talking 1080p resolution
That's 1080p.
with a 120 hertz refresh rate.
Wow, 120 hertz on a handheld. That sounds like a pretty big leap, doesn't it? For visual smoothness, what does that actually mean for the gaming experience?
Well, think of it this way. 120 hertz means the screen updates 120 times every second. It's twice as often as the, standard 60 times you might be used to.
Right.
So the result is a noticeably smoother picture, especially when things are moving quickly on screen. Fast-paced action games, racing titles. You should see less motion blur, basically. It feels clearer, more responsive.
Makes sense.
And when you want to play on a bigger screen, the included Switch 2 dock will support 4K upscaling for your TV.
Okay, let's quickly break down upscaling in simple terms. It's like, imagine you have a digital photo and you want to print it bigger, right?
Yeah, good analogy.
Upscaling is kind of like that for video. The console takes the original image, which might be lower res than 4K,
Yeah.
and uses processing to make it look sharper on a 4K TV.
Exactly.
It's not native 4K, but it should still look much better on those big high-def displays.
That's a great way to put it. It allows for a better presentation on modern TVs. And speaking of interacting with the console, the Joy-Cons are also being redesigned.
Ah, the Joy-Cons.
They're calling them Joy-Con 2 controllers. And one of the more unexpected details, they'll apparently have the capability to function like a mouse.
A mouse. Really? That's
Yeah.
surprising. How do you even envision that being used on a gaming console? It opens up a lot of questions.
Oh. It does. The article doesn't really detail how this mouse functionality works, but it definitely suggests Nintendo is thinking, outside the traditional controller box.
Hmm.
Maybe for navigating menus, or certain game types, strategy games maybe, puzzle games, where precise pointing could be useful. It's definitely a feature that makes you wonder.
It certainly does. And for anyone who, like me, constantly battled storage space on the original Switch,
Yeah.
this next upgrade is going to be a very welcome change.
Oh, absolutely. Huge news here. The internal storage is getting a massive increase to 256 GB,
256.
up from 32.
Yeah, compared to the original Switch's 32 GB, that's a significant jump. With digital downloads being so common now, that extra space will make a huge difference. You won't be constantly deleting and re-downloading games.
Finally. No more agonizing over which game gets deleted. Okay, so the new hardware sounds impressive, but what about the games? What can we expect to actually play on this thing?
Well, the headliner, as we kind of touched on, is Mario Kart World. It's launching exclusively on Switch 2, day 1, June 5th. Mario Kart World.
Okay.
And it sounds like a pretty ambitious evolution for the series.
Yeah, the article highlighted some really interesting new features for it, didn't it? Sounds like they're shaking things up.
They really are. For the first time in a main Mario Kart title, we're getting an open world mode.
Open world Mario Kart.
Yeah. Imagine cruising around a vast environment, iconic Mario locations, discovering races as you explore.
Interesting.
Plus, the game will feature dynamic, in-game atmospheric effects. So time of day and weather will actually change as you play.
Oh, cool.
And maybe the most surprising part, support for up to 24 players in a single race.
24 players in Mario Kart. That sounds like glorious, organized chaos.
Right. It's going to be wild.
The open world bit and the dynamic weather also sound like they'll add a ton of depth and replayability. What else did they reveal on the software side? Any new accessories?
Yeah, there's a new accessory called the Switch 2 camera. It's specifically designed for video chats.
Okay, a camera. Makes sense. They're also introducing a Switch 2 Pro controller. This one will feature customizable rear buttons.
Ah, weird buttons.
Yeah.
Like on other Pro controllers.
Exactly. You know, those extra buttons on the back you can map to other actions. Gives players more control options, maybe faster reactions in competitive games.
Useful for sure.
And then, for the veterans among us,
I'm sensing some nostalgia coming on.
you guessed it, GameCube games will be playable on the Switch too.
Yes, that's huge.
It is a big deal for fans, right, who have fond memories of that era. Opens up a whole catalog of classics to rediscover or, experience for the first time.
Fantastic news. I know so many people wanted GameCube support, and it sounds like they're not just looking back, they're also enhancing recent hits.
Exactly. The article mentions that Switch 2 editions of upgraded Zelda games are currently in development.
Upgraded Zelda.
Specific titles weren't named, but it's hard not to think about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine those expansive worlds with, enhanced visuals and performance on the new hardware.
Yeah, those games were already stunning. Enhanced versions on Switch 2. That would be a massive draw. Now, I also noticed a brief mention about potential changes in game pricing.
Yes, good catch. A related piece of info indicated that some Switch 2 games might come with a higher price tag.
Okay.
It's not entirely unexpected, given the tech advancements and the rising costs of game development, but definitely something to keep in mind for budgeting.
A good heads up. So, as we take all this in, new features, new games, it's important to remember the context, right? How incredibly successful the original Switch has been.
It really is. The article points out the original Switch sold over 150 million units since launching back in 2017.
150 million.
Yeah, that puts it right up there with the best-selling consoles ever, like the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation 2. It just speaks volumes about its innovative design and broad appeal.
Truly a testament to its unique place in gaming. And even with Switch 2 on the horizon, Nintendo kept supporting the original, didn't they?
They did. The article highlights recent releases for the original Switch, like The Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, and Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition.
Right, keeping that user base happy.
Exactly. It shows they haven't forgotten about existing owners. They even had a Nintendo Direct just last week focused purely on upcoming original Switch games.
Smart move. And it's interesting, too, how the Nintendo brand itself has kind of grown beyond just the console during the Switch era.
Yeah, looking bigger picture, the article briefly mentions Nintendo's expansion into things like theme parks, animated films. They're even planning a museum.
Right.
It really underscores how Nintendo's become such a big part of pop culture, way beyond just video games. And, one more small but potentially significant detail about the user experience.
Oh, I'm all ears.
The article notes that the eShop, it's expected to run much more smoothly on the Switch 2.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, anyone who's navigated the eShop on the original Switch knows. A performance upgrade there would be a very welcome improvement.
You are absolutely right about that. Okay, so let's bring it all together. Recap the key takeaways for everyone.
Sounds good. So Nintendo Switch 2, officially launching June 5th. Starting price is $449.99.
Got it.
You're getting an enhanced 1080p screen with that smoother 120Hz refresh rate, a big jump in internal storage to 256 GB, and a dock that upscales to 4K for your TV.
Plus, we're getting those redesigned Joy-Con 2 controllers with the surprising mouse function, the exciting open-world Mario Kart world at launch.
Yeah.
the ability to finally play classic GameCube games, and those upgraded Switch 2 editions of beloved Zelda adventures coming down the line.
And don't forget the new Switch 2 camera for video chats and the Pro controller with those customizable rear buttons for more, advanced control. Overall, it seems like a pretty significant step forward.
Absolutely. So we hope this deep dive has given you a clear, concise picture of the big Nintendo Switch 2 announcements. You're now armed with the essential info, no wading through endless articles needed.
Which leads to a really interesting point for you, the listener, to consider. With all these new features and upgrades, what aspect of the Nintendo Switch 2 has you the most excited? How do you think these enhanced capabilities, these new games, will ultimately shape your gaming experiences going forward? Definitely something to mull over as we count down to that June launch.